Before results existed, somebody made you commit. Someone or something believed in the potential of you before it was proven. Do you know what you call that? Empowerment. Everybody, episode 10. Let's fall in. Let's get this thing going. Before the championships, before the reputation, there was the decision. Someone chose to dedicate themselves to something with zero guarantee it would work. That's where real empowerment starts. Not after you were good, but before. I believe it is a coach's job to help empower your team. And Juan taught me that lesson when I spoke with him the other day. You can ask the Silver Knights at Sotomayor. I am their biggest hype man. I don't know if you've seen the videos that I've personally posted on YouTube, but I guarantee you, if you go and you look at all those videos, you'll hear that one random guy screaming in the background. Yeah, people, that's me. And I will always be the biggest hype man for my team. And that's how it always should be. You should never have any real doubt in your members, but you should always be trying to figure out ways how to bring them up. There shouldn't be a reason why a young member isn't hungry. I've had multiple cadets come to me and they're like, oh, sir, I want to learn this, I want to learn that. And I'll show them what I know. In no way, shape, or form am I good. I've said that before. And if I had to do a drill dojo belt, I don't know where I'd land. I'll leave that up to Adam Jupe, whatever he decides to crown me on if he's listening to these things. But the kids would come up to me asking me, oh, Mr. Edward, I want to be able to learn this. Okay, cool. I'll feed them what I know. I'll show them the few moves that I do know, and then that's it. And then if they want to ask me for more, I'm like, you got to go find that. You got to go do the research. You go discover what you want. And then they come back to me knowing all this other stuff, but I'm feeding that fire. I continue to lay that wood on that burning ember to make sure that that thing engulfs in a flame, because I want them to see that, wow, because I did these couple things with Mr. Edward, I can now do all this other stuff, which I wholeheartedly believe. Empowering someone doesn't mean that you're telling them that they're great. No, that's not what I do. I will be blatantly honest with all of my kids. I'm never going to tell them that they're great, but it means that I'm just building a high enough standard that they have to grow and meet it. We build a standard to where it's not impossible to meet, but it pushes them enough to where they have to continue to strive for it. I'm never going to show the boys or the Soto team something that I can't do. I'm never going to show them something that is impossible. The things I do know are challenging enough to where it pushes them. But if they want to go beyond that, it's up to them now. But I give them the tools, I give them the resources to get to that next level. I make sure that they know that I believe in them, but they have to be the ones to do it. I'm not just going to feed their ego. I'm not just going to be like, oh, great, oh, yeah, you did it. That's not what I'm here to do. Great, you did the basic move, congratulations. You did a port spin, great. Everybody else can. But what are you doing beyond? What are you doing to excel beyond your expectations? Not just mine, but yours. Is your standard, where are you setting your standards? What can I do to make myself better? The real test of empowering someone isn't how they perform while you're watching. It's what they're capable of once you're not in the room anymore. Like I've said it before, we don't know what these other teams are doing behind closed doors. Brandeis, Reagan, these big name teams, Flower Bluff, Francis Lewis, everybody's mad all the time because guess what? They're winning, but you don't know how their practices run. You don't know what their off season looks like. And it's what they're doing when no one else is watching that makes them that much more elite. Because like I said, you get frustrated with consistently losing to these same teams, but yet you change nothing in your patterns to get better. You change nothing to rise to that next level. What are you doing when no one else is watching that's going to make you better? And that is how legacies are made, by being the voice of change, being the voice of reason. And that's why I don't think empowerment is a big enough topic for Juan. He's done more than that. I'm sure there's a bigger word that's in the English dictionary for empowerment, but whatever it is, that's Juan. And even then, that may still not be big enough. I've known Juan since high school. He's coached the Silver Valor. I've single-handedly witnessed his work, his commitment, and his dedication to his teams. Juan is always there. I don't think I've ever seen him not be available. I don't even think I've seen Juan take a day off when he was with the Silver Valor back in the day. He made sure that his teams knew that, one, he was always there, and two, he was always striving to make them better. That drill is not where this lesson ends. Your lesson will end beyond the drill pad when you look back and you reflect back on Juan and you think, oh, that's what he was talking about. I ran into Juan at Texas A&M a few years back when I was going there for my degree. And he's still the same guy. He's charismatic, he's caring, he's loving. And it's good to know that he's built such a culture around his teams that they all feel that way with him. Juan has worked with multiple teams over the years. He's worked with the Lady Vikings. He's now working with the B2 Bombers. And of course, his biggest legacy is with the Silver Valor, working alongside with Senior Master Sergeant Reese. It gives me great privilege. And it was such a great time to talk to Juan that I am so happy that you all get to listen to it today. And you all get to hear the experience and the lessons that and the insights that Juan has, because he is not a nobody in drill. I guarantee you. If there's a reason why that you've lost in the Nationals, I guarantee you Juan Espinoza is more than likely the reason behind it. Without further ado, everybody, I give you my close friend, a national winning coach, Juan Espinoza.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Juan Espinoza. I am a friend of drill, a friend to drillers. I am a Houston native. I grew up in Houston. My family moved to San Antonio. I consider San Antonio home. I would never move back to Houston. But to tell you a little bit about my current life, I'm still in San Antonio. I'm the Director of Student Success and Institutional Development at Propel Career Academy. I am a proud alumnus of A&M San Antonio, which, you mentioned, you kind of ran into me there. I worked there at my alma mater for about 10 years, working with adult learners, people who were military connected. I am on the podcast for my work with JROTC Drill and Leadership Cadet Training. I was a product of JROTC. I graduated from a little bitty program. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but John Jay High School is where I graduated from. And shortly after graduating, I started to coach at Tom C. Clark High School, and I am known to be an unarmed drill team coach. I've coached armed drill teams and trained armed drill teams, but unarmed is my expertise, which then also falls in with color guard and all of the other competitive categories. But I've done coaching here locally. I've also done coaching nationally with a couple of drill teams. I'm sure we'll get into that later, but that's who I am. I dad of two. I have a wonderful partner. His name is Alex, who supports all of my travel and shenanigans with JROTC and drill team. So that is a little bit about me.
I could be wrong. I may have some information from a horrible source, which is me. But Eric and I touched it, right? It was Juan and the Silver Valor, and I know we've coached at other teams, and I know it's not as full time as it was prior. But is it still kind of part-time thing? Are we seeing it maybe like summer? Are we still kind of in the realm a little bit here and there?
That's a really great question. I myself am in transition, and so I coached the Silver Valor drill team from the summer of 2004 all the way through, it was 2016. That's the last year I officially coached. I know people call it a retirement. I've heard that term used. I stepped away rather from coaching a full-time team. Here locally, I've not had a team, but I have had teams that I stayed on with and that I continued to work with. And so that allowed me to still travel and work with an amazing program out of Salem, Oregon, North Salem High School specifically. They are an Army JROTC unit working with the amazing Colonel Dwight Morse, and I trained with him for about a decade as well. I did that. I did Silver Valor, and after kind of that chapter closed, still stayed on with the client, but most recently started to work with an amazing program in Beaver Creek, Ohio. I am working with the unarmed drill team there, known as the B2 Bombers, working with the amazing Major Marvin Whitlow. who, a funny story, kind of found me, kind of asked some questions, asked here and there, did his research, which, mind you, amazing research if you can find me. But he found one of my amazing colleagues, Lydia Carroll, who is also a very, very talented trainer. Lydia and I went to high school together. She was the Snap 2 drill team commander her senior year. But anyway, Major Whitlow and Lydia had connected at an event. And Lydia unfortunately was unavailable, and she said, "Hey, I know a guy who's been my mentor in some of these instances with training and drill team and stuff like that, and his name is Juan Espinoza." And so Major Whitlow was able to reach out to me, and very, very long conversations, several text messages back and forth. But fast forward, I am now officially training the B-2 bombers out of Beaver Creek. And so I guess you can say I'm out of retirement, never really fully pulled away from it, but I am very, very happy to work with such an aspirational team. They have some big goals, so I'm very happy to be working with them.
So Beaver Creek, right? It seems like they're definitely moving in that direction. They are a very highly competitive school over the last few years.
Right.
I coach out at Sotomayor, and Juan, we're here in San Antonio. We know how
Right.
competitive these teams are.
Yes,
And
they are.
Sotomayor's, they're not there yet, but they're building there. And when we were getting ready for nationals and we were competing in the second division, I'm trying to get them to understand, like, hey, like, what's your closest competition? And I scavenged the earth for something on Beaver Creek, and it was nearly impossible. And I think I found a video on Facebook from a parent that had posted something from a couple years back. I found this thing. I showed it to the kids. I was like, this is your comp. I was like, you need to make sure that we need to get to this level. So, and I just found out too that they had Trey Davison as their armed drill
They
team coach.
do. Yes.
So it's pretty interesting to, they're building an empire over there. It seems like they got Juan Espinoza, got Trey Davison. I mean,
Right.
they're shooting for the stars over there. I can tell.
Yeah, and let me say this, and this episode will be full of this. I want to make sure that we understand programs like Beaver Creek, right? Before they had Juan Espinoza working with them, they had a Major Whitlow, and before Silver Valor had Juan Espinoza, they had a senior master sergeant, Antonio Ruiz. And before a lot of these teams and schools and programs kind of get to that level, or at least decide to step into the drill world as a competitor, they had committed instructors. They had instructors with a vision. They had instructors with passion and commitment, and it took their decision to say, I want to do something for the cadets of this program. And so, yes, right, we as coaches, as trainers, come along and kind of help push these programs. At least that's kind of how I see my role, right? Before the Lady Vikings had Juan Espinoza, they had Colonel Morse for years there with the teams, with the cadets there locally. And so I also want to stress the importance of that. Yes, some of these programs had coaches, professional coaches, but before any of that happened, they had dedicated instructors that made that happen.
100%. And it goes back to what I was speaking with Master Arnibata, that the coaches, the trainers there, we're hired on hands.
Right.
We're not there in the trenches with these cadets day in and day out.
Right.
We only see them for an hour a day. And I'm glad that you brought up Senior Master Sergeant Reese, because I want to get to my first question that I have for you, Juan.
Right.
And I'm going to assume it's Master Sergeant Reese that kind of brought you in, but I want you to take me back to the beginning. And how did you get involved with unarmed drill? And what made you decide that this was something you're going to dedicate yourself to? Because obviously whatever Jay had produced, you found the love there, you transitioned out of that. And then we kind of have an idea already that Sergeant Reese found you and brought you along for the Silver Valor. But what was it there that made you say, you know what, I'm going to do this for the next 12, 16 plus? So
Right.
what did that look like? What was that thought process?
I'm laughing, I'm chuckling. I have a huge smile on my face because that really does take me back to a moment in my life that was a catalyst for me. My family, I did Army JROTC, 2 years of it in Houston, and I went to a high school that no longer exists. It was called Robert E. Lee High School in Houston, Texas, and it was very small. I think the battalion had maybe 120, 130 cadets when I was there. So kind of on the small side. But anyway, in the summer between my sophomore year and my junior year, my family moved to San Antonio. And so obviously that was a pretty impactful transformational moment for me. If you kind of think back at like how grounded we feel in our friends and how grounded we feel in the spaces in which we exist in the high school and our social circles and our teachers and just everything that makes up our lives changing that in a matter of a couple of months. And that's kind of where I was mentally. I wasn't happy. I wasn't really excited for the new venture, but obviously I grew up with a very small family. I myself am an only child. But fast forward that summer, I took it upon myself to say to my mom specifically, like, I did JROTC for 2 years. I loved wearing the uniform. I loved drill. I was actually the XO of my drill team my sophomore year there at Lee High School. And so I've already had moments of leadership. I've had moments of success. I was on the battalion staff my sophomore year and I moved up pretty quickly. I've always had this level of vigor and determination that allowed me to learn just really fast. And so I was really dedicated to continuing and to finding that program, right? And I said, Army, ROTC, Army, I want to do Army. That's what I know. That's what I want to stay with. And so we moved over off of Medina Base Road, down the road from Marbach Road, which is what Jay is on. And we were on the very edge of the zoning lines. And so I did my own research and I was like, where the heck is the nearest high school? What type of ROTC program do they have? And in doing my research, as we all know now, an ISD is mainly Air Force, and I was right there by Southwest ISD. And as we know, Southwest has the amazing Naval Junior ROTC program.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived too far from Northeast ISD, which is where we have the amazing Army JROTC units from Northeast. And so I went to go tour Southwest High School. I spoke with a school administrator from there, but it was a very quick thing, a quick conversation. It was very like, okay, you have to transfer. Great. You want to do ROTC? Great. They're good, I guess. Let us know if you're interested. And if you're interested, then your parents have to enroll you pretty quickly. So it wasn't a very positive. And I said, okay, great. Right. So let me go and tour Air Force. I was like, oh, God, right? Like, I'm going to have to wear blue, and that's such a stupid color. And what do they have to offer? And I knew nothing of John Jay High School at all whatsoever, have not ever laid eyes on a YouTube video or video recording of their drill teams, nothing. And so they had their own JROTC building. And I walk in there pretty nervously. I was on my own, and out comes, out of the double doors from the John Jay High School JROTC building, the most amazing fit female color guard member with a snap to shirt on, drill shoes with taps at the bottom of those shoes, hair in the most beautiful slick back bun with a baseball cap on, just ready to do some color guard drill. And I said, "Hi." And she responded to me, and I said, "Hey, I'm a cadet thinking of transferring to John Jay High School. Can you maybe point me in the direction of talking with an instructor and stuff like that?" And she goes, "Oh yeah, I can tell you where the instructors are, but my name's Charlene. Shout out Charlene. My name's Charlene. I can tell you a little bit about the program. I can tell you about this and that." And she was just so generous with her time, with explaining. Back then, she was saying, "We're the best Air Force junior ROTC program in the world." She said those words to me. "We're one of the largest units in the world."
In the world,
And
you say?
yeah, well, back then, John Jay's enrollment for their JROTC program was massive. If I'm not mistaken, we were at over 500 cadets
Wow.
in the unit. And so it was huge. It was huge, huge, huge. I could be wrong. I think it could be more if I'm not mistaken. And so anyway, she took the time and then she introduced me to an instructor there who I'm sure we all know here in the city of San Antonio and drill at large. But I met with Sergeant Harwell, which, if anyone knows Sergeant Harwell, shout out Sergeant Harwell. He has a magnetic personality, very, very loud. And I was immediately intimidated by him, but also he made me feel very, very welcome and answered my questions. And I was hooked immediately. I felt very welcome. I felt seen. I was also very impressed with their building. Sergeant Harwell showed me their logistics area. And obviously, they had to have massive logistics to accommodate all of the cadets that they had. They had a huge trophy cases, just walls and walls of trophies and locker rooms and just dedicated. They had 7 instructors back then.
Jeez.
There were 7 wonderfully dedicated instructors. Anyway, fast forward, go back to tell my mom, "Hey, this is the high school that I'm going to go to," and stuff like that. And so, really funny story, but I met the wonderful Sergeant Ruiz. And it was tryouts. It was tryouts for drill team. And I was walking in as a junior. I was not walking in as a lower classman. I was walking in as a junior. I had 2 years of ROTC under my belt, Army JROTC, and I thought it was a badass. I didn't need to know the basics. I didn't need to know this or that, and so I carried myself as such, and I think that's what helped set me apart ultimately, because Sergeant Ruiz back then coached and instructed the junior varsity drill team at John Jay High School. And there was a huge thing. They made a huge thing about it, right? Drill team tryouts, and this is what you have to do. Make sure you're wearing black shorts. Make sure you have a baseball hat. Make sure, just their recruiting was phenomenal. And so as soon as they, talked about drill team, I said, "Yep, I'm going to be there." And so I was there. And so this was, a couple of weeks into the new semester, and I had already seen the amazingly talented Snap 2 unarmed drill team a couple of times. And I had told myself, "Yep, that's it. That's the team." And I will go to my death remembering the vision of Snap 2 in their prime. And so anyway, I remember falling in. It was for the Marching Mustangs drill team, is for the drill team program in general. But back then it was a different time. And so they told all the male cadets, right? All the male cadets on this side, all the female cadets over here. And that's it. And so if you're a male, you're trying out for junior varsity Marching Mustangs. They put a weapon in my hand. It was a little tiny, light, little fake facsimile weapon. It was lighter. It was, I don't know, 4 pounds or something like that. I was like, "What is this? Like, this is not it." And then the unarmed team, went on the other side, and Sergeant Ruiz comes up to me. I was standing at attention, and and I didn't sound off. I don't know if he remembers this, but I didn't say my name. I didn't say anything. He was like, "Who are you? You're new to the program." And I said, "Yes, sir." He goes, "Well, I'm being told by your element leader that you don't want to be here in this flight. What flight do you want to be in?" I said, "Oh, I want to be on Snap 2. So just kind of point me in the right direction so I can go be on Snap 2, please. Thank you." Um, and he goes, "Oh," he was like, "Okay." He was like, "Let me kind of show you a little bit about how Jay kind of does their drill teams." And he kind of explained to me, you first serve some time on the junior varsity, and then, the varsity teams back then, the Silver Eagles and Snap 2, had a very, very intricate tryout process to make it onto varsity. And that's what you have to go through. And it doesn't matter if you're a junior, you have to go through this process because that's what's fair. And I said, "No, I'm not doing that. I'm so sorry." Right. I don't think I need to be on junior varsity. I know my stuff. I know this, I know that. Again, just being the hard-headed person that I am.
That's confidence.
Right, right. And he said, "Okay." He was like, "Go home, think about it, and you let me know. But the only way that you're going to be able to drill for John Jay High School is if you drill, one, with a weapon in your hand, and two, on my marching Mustangs." So I was really, really upset, really disillusioned. But I kind of made the decision to go back and try out, and I did make the University Marching Mustangs. I had a successful year. Their junior varsity was on another level, as you can imagine. They competed directly with their varsity teams, often beating their varsity teams in some categories. And it was a very, very high standard, high excellence program all around, led by Sergeant Ruiz and the other instructors. And so even though it was armed, which I wasn't used to, even though it was Air Force, which I wasn't used to, what I was used to is the rigor that they put their cadets through, right? Practices were ran very systematically. There were processes, there was hierarchy, there was rank. It was very military oriented, obviously. And the level of competition, just friendly, internal competition, really allowed itself to create an environment where people like me could lean into that and really test the boundaries of what it meant to be a successful drill team cadet, and allowed me to succeed, obviously, with Sergeant Ruiz's mentorship. And so that, I mean, if you're asking me to take it all the way back to the beginning, I mean, that's really what it was. Not very many people have heard that story of how I ended up on the Marching Mustangs and at John Jay High School my senior year. So that's a little bit of the story there.
Just knowing you from high school, Juan, you were drilling at such a level for the unarmed team. Might as well have been on Snap 2 your junior year, like you said. And drill was such a different thing back then too. I don't know if this is the right way of saying it, but it was sexist in a way. If you were female, you were doing unarmed. If you were male, you were doing armed. If you wanted to rise up in the ranks, I don't know if that's how it was everywhere across the board.
Right.
But
And it wasn't. And I think that is what allowed programs like John Jay. It was a model that worked for its time and for its audience, right?
right.
Because they were very, very inclusive of the parents in the program. The parents knew way ahead of time, hey, if your cadet wants to be involved in the program, these are the parameters in which they can represent the drill teams. These are the rules of engagement. And they adapt? Did JRTC and drill adapt throughout the years? Absolutely. And I'm so glad that I was able to see that. I had a front row seat to seeing male cadets get onto unarmed teams and female cadets get onto armed teams, and, non-binary individuals kind of drill for high schools proudly. But when I went through that experience, that's how it was. And it worked, and it proved, right, to work really, really well. But I'm glad in a way that I was able to exist and drill competitively in a time that existed, because it allowed me to appreciate that, but then it also allowed me to appreciate, when people say, oh, the times are changing with competitive drill and this and that, I was really able to also appreciate those waves of change, because I know that it was necessary.
Yes, definitely. I think the moment for me, which is kind of shocking, because I didn't think Sergeant Reese at the time would have ever budged. But it was when Zach Leard went from the JV and he rose up to the Silver Valor.
Yes, he did.
Love you, Zach. Miss you, Zach.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
And Juan, I want to kick back to some of the stuff that you've done over the years of coaching. And you've built multiple national championship teams, whether victorious or even just getting them to the level of rising to a national style team.
Right.
What are the core principles or coaching philosophies that you have that remain consistent throughout your success?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I don't get asked very often what my principles are or what my legacy is built on. I will say right at the very, very top, and this is not just specific to working with unarmed teams who are majorly female. This is really consistent across the board, but I do want to say working with female cadets has really chiseled this out for me, and that is empowerment. As a coach, I find myself empowering cadets into themselves and step into their authenticity when it comes to being a competitive driller. And so whenever, and it's different for different teams, right? When it came to Silver Valor, gosh, I was a teenager. I was a teenager whenever I started working with them. The girls were, 4 or 5 years away from my age. And I learned to be a coach through every single girl who was on the roster. But I really, really started to learn that I had a knack for empowering people, making them believe in their ability, their capacity, helping them navigate some of those internal, narratives that they build for themselves, right? As teenagers, we can be really tough on ourselves with lack of self-confidence and lack of awareness, lack of decision acumen, and all of those things. And so that's certainly a philosophy that I'd say that has remained consistent, not only with the cadets that I've worked with, but also with the instructors that I've worked with. And so it's funny because, recently I started working with the B-2 bombers, shout out Major Whitlow. But that was one of the earliest conversations that I had with the major, right? And I said, hey, because he kept on saying, oh, and Texas this and Texas that. But I remember telling him, I was like, Ohio can have that too. Like little Beaver Creek, Ohio can have a nationally competitive team. I was like, and as a matter of fact, you've done well at the Air Force Nationals, right? Like you've taken that regional championship. It's not like it's this little old Beaver Creek. Like, no, like step into that. Yeah. And when I told him, I know he'll listen to the podcast, but I remember I said, yeah, and you need to be competing at the master's level. You need to be competing at Division I. And he fought me a little bit on that. He's like, I don't know, right? Like, I don't know. Division I, unarmed teams, like it's a little crazy up there. And I know that there were several different layers to that. One of them being he had a plan, he had a vision, he had goals, and before competing at the masters level at Division One. And so fast forward, they ended up winning, right? They are the reigning Division Two national championship drill team. And it was so great. I mean, I remember seeing the live awards ceremony. I was watching the awards gala with Josefa Ruiz, which is the 2015 Silver Valor Commander, and Sergeant Ruiz. We were watching together, and I was so happy to see that they won. But I was also so happy to know that I was right. I was so happy to know that I knew
it.
that him and his team were the best on the roster. And you know what? Kudos to Major, because he proved it the way he wanted to on his timeline. And guess what? Now they're going to go in to the Division One category with a nationals title under their belt, and I was so glad. But yeah, to bring it back to your question, a true voice of empowerment, empowering people to take risks and to trust themselves and to feel confident in their decisions has been a huge philosophy for me.
That is awesome. I've had the same commander out of 2 years out of the 3 years I've just worked with, and now I'm getting to my 4th commander now, and his name's Monte Brothers, and he just got into the Air Force. He's doing the Air Force Honor Guard right now.
Nice.
And when I first got there, they didn't have a lot of structure. They had an idea of what they were doing, but they didn't really understand how competitive drill can be until I got there. It took him midway that second year to understand, because we tried to get the team to go to nationals that year, but it was just the funding and the rushing, and it also was the school's first time ever attempting to do it. And so it was just really hard on the instructors and the principal to kind of find the means to allow us to go.
Right.
And Monte kind of fell into this thing, well, like, sir, what do I get? And it hurt me because it never gave Monte the floor to take his team to the nationals. But I told him that I was like, everything that you've built over these last 2 years is what's going to make the team great the following year. And sure enough, we competed in Division II last year, and the Silver Knights took 3rd overall. And I messaged Monte at the time. He was going through basic training when we were at nationals. I wrote him a letter saying, "Hey, buddy, I just want to let you know, I'm sure all the boys are writing you a letter too, but we took third overall. We won first exhibition. None of this would have been done without you." And finding those small moments of empowerment, finding those small moments of just being able to get them to see the bigger picture really helped me navigate my kind of coaching philosophy kind of standards,
Absolutely.
because I don't know how many other post high school people are doing this, that are doing this long time, that it's not just a thing where it's like, oh, just go do it. You want to be that influence to these kids.
Yeah, I think there's a moment in time where coaches, even instructors, right, are trying to find their voice. And it's great when that voice is a voice of empowerment. It's so great, right, to push and to mentor and to help, these individuals kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel, but more importantly, see themselves in a different light, right? When you can coach to empowerment. And again, I love and have enjoyed empowering young women to find themselves, right? And that was always something that I spoke with my Silver Valor. I've had conversations like that with the Lady Vikings. I've had conversations with female dominated unarmed drill teams across the United States, basically saying, like, you are important enough, you are a huge component of the national drill team stage,
Yes.
and do not think that you are not. And so I think I was lucky. I was really lucky to find my voice, and it just so happened that it led with words of encouragement, words of empowerment, especially to our lady drillers out there.
Right. And that couldn't be any better of a segue into my next question.
Uh, uh-huh.
So I want a hot take here, Juan. I want to know what your hot take would be. What are the small details that separate an average routine from one that wins championships? Because the unarmed does not have the weapons. They're dealing solely on basic military marching style. And when you try to separate that from armed and unarmed, what do you think will separate those teams?
Yeah, if I had to articulate what that separation is when you're an unarmed drill team, what's going to separate you and what will get you the points and the placement that will then give you titles and trophies is you have to build a routine through human eyes and human ears. A lot of drill teams, instructors alike, will think, right, we saw a band, we saw a marching band, and the video was so cool. They did this formation and I forwarded that video to my commander and I said, make this happen. And then all of a sudden that the formation change or whatever doesn't resonate with the judges. They don't see the score. They don't see the points. They don't get the reaction. Remove the judges from the equation. The audience doesn't even clap or ooh and or this and that because they forgot that as a human being, they were watching a video and visually they were attracted to what they saw because they had an aerial view
Right.
of that formation, not the view or even the sound bite that a judge is going to have standing on the same plane as the cadets. And so if teams can build sequences, movements, sounds, formations that can capture a judge from where they stand and where they're grading from, I think that's step one to separating themselves from an average routine.
Right.
And so that's really my first hot take is quit leaning on these videos that are painting a picture for you that have nothing to do with the picture that the judge is actually looking at.
Yeah. And sometimes I feel like they forget that these bands deal with 100+ kids. You're not going to get the same formation from 9 to 13.
From 9 to 13 to 16, but also let's take that a step further. Hell, some of these videos of these amazing bands are from professional bands. Like
But yeah,
these are paid artists that practice for several hours a day and travel and all these things. So of course it's gonna look like that, right?
of course yes, you better be in step. You better look the way the video looks.
Exactly.
You better look that
Exactly.
way.
I'll also go to say this when you look at some of the most, talented filled routines, what I draw from that whenever I look at a Flower Bluff Seahawk video, whenever I look former Silver Valor video, whenever I look at a Theodore Roosevelt Writerettes video from the early 2000s, those routines are full of risk taking. And you have to take those risks where sometimes it leaves the world of basic military drill and incorporates these visuals and sounds that you wouldn't necessarily hear or see in a basic or average routine, right? And it's a risk because sometimes the judges, right, the human beings who are scoring you may respond negatively to it, but you don't know until you take that risk and you try it. Like for example, there was one year, gosh, 2014, 15, 16, one of those. We were editing some parts of the routine and I told the girls, it's like, I really want a different sound here. And I was trying to create a really high pitched sound. So I was like playing around with like them hitting the tiptoe of the drill shoe on the floor, or hitting the heel or whatever. And it just wasn't giving me what I wanted. And I said, I want to try this. I want you to try to snap with your fingers. And that kind of opened up a whole can of worms because some of the girls didn't know how to snap their fingers. And I was like, okay, that's weird. Let's teach you how to snap your fingers first.
I think you didn't
And
teach them how to whistle either.
right, exactly. And so, we were playing around with some movements, and all of a sudden we kind of came up with a sound bite that was different, and it kind of gave me what I wanted. And I remember specifically looking at the judges' faces whenever it came up to that portion in the routine. And locally, the judges just ate it up. I mean, we saw comments on the drill sheets like really great musicality, could not keep my eyes and ears off of your team. This is not. So I knew the risk was paying off. And so then we just kind of kept on taking that same risk and competed with it in the Ocean Center. Now I knew it was going to be difficult as the Ocean Center is just like massive room, and it's really noisy in there, so I didn't know if that was going to translate the same way. And so yeah, I would just say, right, those strategic risks can also be those things that can kind of separate you from your average routine.
Right. Yeah, there was the first year when I was with Soto. And I have their first time ever doing exhibition, and we did it at state. The first time we only did it once that year, and dear Lord, it was a mess. And
Isn't it always?
I had guys they were turning around the wrong direction. They were bumping into each other. I was like, oh my God. And I told them, I was like, look, the goal is just one, don't drop. Two, we just need time. I was like, that's the thing. I was like, we just need to hit over that 6-minute mark. And I was telling him, I was like, just pause for a little longer here. Do whatever we can to just stay within that time limit. And so once that first year happened, I was like, okay, great. Like we got over that hump. The next year happened. We got our skill level increased a little bit. And I don't know why, but I thought about, I was like, hey, let's break the barrier a little bit. I was talking to my commander at the time. I was like, hey, like, how would you feel if we tried double timing in the X?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, what? I was like, yeah. I was like, how would you feel if we grabbed the weapons at port and we did like a double time in there? And he's like, oh, I don't know, sir. I'm like, oh, come on, let's just try it. So we did it, and I don't think the boys quite liked it. So it didn't quite hit as well as I thought it was. I was like, hey, but we're taking the risk. Come on.
Right. Absolutely. Like, what if the judge would have said, that was amazing, right? And first, like, the team has to have buy-in in it. Like, please don't go on to a competitive drill floor, half-assing a risk, right? You really got to believe the risk and take it. But yeah, I've seen some teams try that and it's paid off. But again, just like what is going to work? And sometimes you have to get so specific, right? Like when you're really leaning into the competitiveness of it, like you even start to realize like this flavor of move or whatever doesn't work at district, but it works at state. And it works wonders at the nationals, but don't ever do it at Air Force nationals. And you start to get so specific, and that's really where you start to strategize, right? And so I would, if you were to have continued that risk and it worked somewhere, make a note of that and say, the judges really liked that element of our routine, or the opposite, and kind of go with that. But
yes.
But yeah, risks are important for sure.
Right. And with every risk, there has to be built trust. And every championship team has a culture behind it. And Erica kind of touched on it a little bit when I had talked to her, hence why, we're talking today, Juan.
Right.
But what expectations do you set from day one to create trust, accountability, and discipline within your teams?
Yeah, I'll speak specifically for the teams that I've worked with, right, from Silver Valor to now B2 Bombers, especially even the Lady Vikings. The expectation is that you believe and you trust that all I want to do is help you expand experience what I've helped other unarmed teams experience. And so remove the competitive drill piece of it, because I think that's a moot point. But when you think of the things that I've helped drill teams experience, I've helped them experience esprit de corps, camaraderie, teamwork, hard work, building something together, then executing it, then moving from liking it to loving it to living it. All of those experiences are transformational to cadets at the high school age. And when you can curate experiences, when you can curate a culture that's based on hard work, a high standard of excellence, a high standard of expectations set on respect and timeliness and accountability, and all of those soft skills that really make you the human that we want to make them, right? The citizen that we want to make them. If they can just trust that that is at the core of our culture, the trophies and the titles will come easier.
Mm-hmm.
I say that specifically like for teams that I work with now. With Silver Valor, they were my guinea pigs, and I was trying everything on them to see what stuck. Let me try this, and let me try this activity, and let me try that. But with the teams that I work with now, I remember having a very, very serious conversation with the B-2 bombers just recently. And I said, you look at all of these teams in Texas, right? You look at all these teams and you hold them in such high regard. It's not the trophies that sets them apart. It's their culture that sets them apart. That is what you want to experience. And it was certainly something that the major really that resonated with Major, because he was at the center of the culture that they've built, right? Built on hard work and a high standard of excellence, and that really resonated with him. But yeah, I think that's really, really what it's about. I also, it's important as a coach to really make sure that you're dedicated to them in every capacity, right? Not just teaching them how to drill, but teaching them how to be a better person, and teach them manners, and teach them how to dress, and teach them. That was one of the things that, really early coaches like me and Lydia Carroll, Ruben Medell, Danielle Pletcher, so many, is teach them 1, 2, 3, 4, but then also how to be a better daughter, right? How to be a better friend. And so once you focus on those things, I think the space and the energy that you curate with your cadets is very positive. And that's like, whenever you can help them be better humans, you can ask more of them. You can ask them to drill harder and to try harder, because that trust is already there, right? And they understand now that all you have to do is listen to your instructors and listen to your coaches. And if you do that, there will be a return. And so I think that's building a culture is a precursor to getting the results that you want.
Right. And I spoke with Matt Winling. When I spoke with him, he told me that exact same thing. He's like, if there's anything that we could have first on this team, it would be a safe and well organized culture in our team. And if we had done just that, we're successful in our own right. Like you mentioned, your teams have to trust your instructors, they have to trust the coaches. And if you don't have that within your team, I don't know how any other coach or team is able to do that out there. But so speaking about coaching, what do you think is a mistake that specifically unarmed coaches make over and over, that hold their teams back from reaching to the next level? Because whether maybe it is a bit of immaturity, maybe you have that one high schooler that just graduated that hasn't quite gone to the military, hasn't quite gone to college yet. They got some free time, then they immediately go into it and they think it's going to be the same, but now it's different. What do you think?
Well, I think there are different answers for different situations when it comes to mistakes. I've seen recent high school graduates come into the coaching space, and the mistake that they have there, especially if they're coaching a different school than their alma mater, is the biggest mistake is that they assume that the new school they're coaching wants to be exactly the same as their alma mater. And so that's really doing a disservice to the team. It's doing a disservice to the school, because one of the most important things, in my opinion, a pillar of a successful drill team is their identity. And so when you try to copy paste something without really kind of doing your research and talking about those things, those fundamental foundational things with the team, and you just assume, then that's one of the biggest mistakes that I've seen from coaches that try to go into it right after graduating high school. Another mistake I'd probably call out is not gaining or doing the research or like learning the basics of what makes a good exhibition routine.
Mm-hmm.
And I say exhibition specifically because, I would imagine as a coach, I'm hoping, right, crossing my fingers, the basics of regulation drill, and
You'd hope.
maybe you've done color guard, maybe you haven't, inspection, that kind of thing. But when it comes to exhibition drill, there's nothing worse than going to a school. Say they did say, hey, Edward, we really don't have an exhibition routine. Please teach us. And then coming back to them and giving them a really hard routine to teach, to learn. That I've seen happen so many times. To teach a team a routine that is very difficult, right? The difficulty level is through the roof. And here you are expecting for this team to learn it, in a week and a half is impossible. And as a matter of fact, it's detrimental because the cadets are not having a good time learning this. And so learning the basics, learning the basics of hand movements and beats and formations and sounding off and all of those things, and helping the cadets understand the basics and the foundational building blocks of a routine first, and just jumping right in is a huge disservice to a program.
No, definitely. For me, like just coaching the Knights, that, like I said, that first year, we only did X one time. And it was at the end of the year. And
Right.
it was messy. It was a horrible mess. But
Yeah.
I remember them doing it and them coming off, and they all finished, and they felt like these boys left the drill pad. They fell out. They were laughing. They were high-fiving everything, and they felt like they won in their own right. And I couldn't have been any happier, because you start from the basics. You start from zero before you can start running. And
Right.
God, man, I think that's so important, because, like you said, people automatically think and assume, they go on YouTube and they find the Silver Eagles, they find the Snap 2, the Silver Valor, and they immediately think, man, like, what can I do to get there? Let me see if we can do it. And then they're just met with failure, and they're just disgruntled about it, that they feel like they can't get it. And then they just start to hate the sport.
Right. Yeah, exactly. They start to get this really skewed opinion. I think that's a mistake. I mean, are there more? Yes, but when it comes to coaching and going from one school to another team to another program, it's important that we kind of help them understand where we're starting from, right? Really kind of lay out the timeline so that the expectations are clear.
Right. And that kind of leads me to the next thing. And you've watched drill evolve over the years. How has unarmed drill changed, and where do you think it's headed in the next year, couple years? Where do you think it's heading in the near future?
Yeah, it's evolved in a way. It's evolved in a very unexpected way. And I'm saying this based off of what I saw YouTube videos and videos that were sent to me directly by other coaches and by other instructors. Our teams are unarmed teams, right? some, not all, are leaning so heavily on what they're wearing versus what they're bringing to the drill floor.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a little, I mean, disappointing is a hard word, but I'll say it. You look at these teams and they're no longer focused on developing the routine piece of it. Now they're leaning really heavily on what they're wearing and how can they play up what they're wearing over spending the time, energy, and talent into identifying what's next. Obviously, there are some teams that lean on what they're wearing heavily, and the result is unarmed drill 2.0. And so I know that that sounds confusing, but I guess what I'm trying to say is if you are going to focus strongly on what you're wearing and how you can play up with what you're wearing, your drill and the synchronization and the volume and the power and the stamina and the showmanship and all of it has to match. Otherwise, it's for nothing. And so, for example, the Flower Bluff Seahawks, shout out Danielle, Commander Solis, and that whole team. The Flower Bluff Seahawks put a team on the exhibition floor, and half of them were wearing white, half of them were wearing black. The commander was wearing half black, half white. And so visually, right, whenever they fell in, the platoon fell in right outside of the exhibition pad, it was like, oh gosh, right? This could go really good or this could go really bad. And when I saw that routine executed and how intentional they were with the movements that they did, the formations that they did, where they placed the commander, how they dressed the commander, from the color of their hat to the color of their shoes to who kneeled, who didn't, who started, who followed, the ripple. I mean, it was such a spectacular direction. It was so great. And as a fan, hello, I am sitting here as a fan of unarmed drill. My little sophomore wannabe unarmed driller was just cheering and clapping because I knew that was a risk. 1, 2, I knew the amount of time and energy and talent it took to create such a masterpiece, but then to also show other teams like, okay, you want to focus on what you're wearing? Great. Not only are we going to focus on what we're wearing, we're also going to adapt and adjust every second of our routine to display and show off the two-tone uniform that we're wearing. It was such a home run for me. And if you're going to focus and spend all of this money and all of this time on your uniform, please make sure that you are evolving the material of your routine as well.
Right. Like you said, don't waste the money on the uniform if you're not going to be able to show up with it on.
Right. And then also, just one quick thing about that too. If you're going to spend the money on a custom uniform, even, I would also say do something or write something into the budget that allows these uniforms to be tailored to the cadet. It's very important that the fit of that uniform also look as expensive as the color or the material or whatever that is. That's also something I want to add.
When I think of uniforms and the times of change was 2009, and the Silver Eagles came out in the BDUs.
Right.
And I remember Sergeant Reese blowing a gasket. He was like, what? No, that's not regulation, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, go get him, sir.
Yeah.
But man, no, and it's, you see such outstanding uniforms out there, though. Locally here, you'll always see Reagan's unarmed team.
Right.
And they have the cowboy bucket hats. They're dressed in that old army style uniform, and it's eye-catching. It's different. And then they go out there and they just absolutely destroy it on the pad. It's so neat to see, but I can definitely see what you're talking about, where you're going into more the style than you are the actual performance piece of what unarmed drill should be.
Exactly.
Don't make it so much of a beauty pageant. Make it more about your performance.
Yeah, and I'll even go as far as to say, if you want to make it a beauty pageant and you want to show off these uniforms and you raised all this money and you were able, right, you dreamt of putting your team in this uniform, and just make sure that you zoom out a little bit and make sure that all of the things are checked off. Make sure there's a holistic look whenever you adapt a new uniform, so that it really, you're not earning the points just because it's fresh and new and exciting, but you're also earning the points because it elevates the routine that you have on the drill floor. So, and it's hard. It's easier said than done. Like, I'm not sitting here saying, why isn't everyone doing it? Like, that's not what I'm saying. But it also helps to get another set of eyes. There's nothing wrong with leaning on a subject matter expert that can be honest with you and kind of point you in the right direction.
Obviously, you've dedicated a lot of your life to coaching. And not necessarily that we're stepping back, but because like we said earlier, it's not so much that we're retiring, because we're never truly out of this field, right?
Right.
But since it's kind of slowed down in a way, since we're not doing it as full time as we were in the past, how has your perspective of drill changed now that you're watching it a little bit more from the outside?
I don't know if, I mean, the drill world has changed, and we can do a whole podcast episode on how it's changed. I am so glad. I am so happy to see that the world of drill teams, competitive drill still exists. I am so happy to be able to work with some of these teams. I am happy to know that drill teams are getting back on their feet. I'm happy to know that there are new instructors coming on board and saying, hey, we once had a drill team. And I know what JROTC did for me. I experienced in JROTC. I was taught a lot of different elements of perseverance and grit, and I fell in love with competition, high standard of excellence and attention to detail and mentorship, because I know what it's meant for people like Sergeant Ruiz to do what he did and so the fact that there are instructors that are still given the opportunity to experience being influential in the lives of cadets, and that there are cadets experiencing JROTC, makes me really, really happy. And here we are now, right? 6 years after COVID. And I feel like every single year we're healing more and more, and drill team is coming back. And I have a feeling that drill team is going to come back stronger than ever. And I'm excited to see that. But I just, and I'm excited for more coaches to be able to step into that role as well, because I know what it did for me. I didn't know what I was doing back in 2004 whenever I was first saying hi, hello to the Silver Valor. I had no idea. But when you're a coach and you are given this responsibility to coach and to mentor these young individuals, it helps you mature. It helps you learn. It helps you be creative and find ways to deal with some of the biggest problems, right? Recruitment, training, all of these things. And so I'm just happy for anyone right now in whatever capacity, whether that is a drill team cadet, an aspiring cadet, an instructor, a coach, a mom, a dad that has a cadet in drill. I'm happy. It makes me happy that people are able to experience this even now.
I talked to a lot of my friends about doing this thing, and and they're like, "Oh, you just gotta do it. You just gotta do it." I'm like, "Oh, I don't know." And I just pulled the trigger one day, and then this thing that I didn't think was going to turn into what it is
Yeah.
has, and I would have never known uh, what this world had in store for me. Now, kind of opening myself back into the drill world more openly. It's it is honestly something different. I didn't think I would find the community that I found because when I went from the Marine Corps, you learn that once you're a Marine, you're always a Marine. You will always find a brother and a Marine. And I didn't think I'd have ever find that same kind of camaraderie since I've been out. And since I've done this thing, I've only been met with open arms. And it is
Right.
so great. It's been so rewarding. And no, it makes me happy too to know that. And I think that is so beautifully said, Juan. I think that is so great.
And let me also add, right? Never in a million years did I think that I would be on a podcast talking about drill, even creating. There have been certain spaces that have been created for drillers, right? A lot of those exist online. There are teams that have been created by post high school drillers, and they get together and create those spaces for themselves. But the fact that you have been able to curate an online space that helps people pour into drill and shine the light on what a wonderful program this can be, and how we've all been inspired and influenced by JRTC competitive drill is so avant-garde. And I wanted to also give you your kudos to take this risk, right? Like you said, you didn't know how this was going to be received. You didn't know if people were going to scoff at it and say, here comes another person trying to be the master of drill teams, and they're a know-it-all. And it's the furthest thing from that, right? It's collaboration. It's also history and legacy. Like, drill team has such a deep rooted legacy. Some of the teams that built drill team and competitive drill don't exist anymore. Some do, and it's up to us to continue to celebrate that. And
Yes.
and I'm so glad that you had Sergeant Ibarra on. Immediately listen to the episode. He represents such a pillar of the San Antonio community, drill community at large as well. I'm so glad you had Erica on. She, I think, represents such a fresh take on the drill world today, competitive drill, logistically, where is it going?
Yes.
What are some of the modern day issues that drill teams are dealing with, and instructors, how are they navigating today's drillers, right? This generation of drillers. And so I want to make sure I say, before we wrap up, how proud I am of you and this endeavor, because I can only imagine, as these episodes go on and as people find you and your voice and this podcast, I can only imagine that it become more and more popular amongst our community.
Juan, you're gonna make me tear up, man.
It's true.
Juan, I appreciate that. And yeah, no, this one, shout out Erica. We love you, Erica. But two, this thing has been such a wild ride. And it's opened so many doors. I've met so many people that I didn't think I'd ever get a chance to talk to. And even just some of the current high school drillers that are messaging me that just want to know more. Like, I had a few boys ask Jackson Rainwater the other week, and now I'm kind of stuck in this group chat with them. And that's all they talk about. And I love it. I love that, they're like, oh, hey, Mr. Edward, like, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? Oh, like, these are my plans for this. I'm great that I get to be a part of that. And
Absolutely.
it has been so rewarding that even some of my parents who are with the Soto school, they've approached me and they're like, oh my God, they're like, we had no idea. This is so cool. Like,
Right.
I didn't think I'd get this kind of reaction. So I greatly appreciate you, Juan.
Of course.
And it means a lot that it comes from you, because like I've said, you're not a nobody in this world, in the unarmed drill world, in the drill community. And Juan Espinoza holds a heavy name. And to get away from me for a second, and my last question I have is, if you were given one final practice with one of your champion teams, or just one of your teams in general, knowing it'd be your last time coaching them, what would be the message that you would leave for them?
Wow. I think the message would be to return the favor, right? If you're listening to this podcast and you know and feel and continue to feel the things that JROTC and competitive drill gave you as a human being, the importance of order, the importance of respect, the importance of a legacy, the importance of mentorship. It's my message to them would be to return the favor and give back in a way that's going to impact our youth and our future the way it impacted you, because that's ultimately how we're going to build our legacy. Let it not end there, right? And it doesn't have to be in the form of coaching. Coaching is a lot. It's not for everyone. It could be in the form of donating money, right, to a program. There are programs everywhere in the United States that could use a really awesome fundraiser. They're one fundraiser away from making it to their regional competition or state competition or even nationals. It can look in just sharing their videos, following them on social media, shouting them out. If you have a local team that was in a parade and all of those things, our cadets and our JROTC programs need to feel seen. And so, championship team or not, I would make sure that they received that message very clearly, is that they give something back to this program as young adults, because the future of this program depends on that.
Yes, wholeheartedly. And like I have so many, like I've just dealt with my first graduating class, the kids I've been with for a while, and all of them, well, the majority, they ask, "Oh, Mr. Edward, can we come back and help out? And can we come back and do this?" And of course I want them there because, I love these kids. I miss them. But I tell them, I'm like, you know what? Take a year first. Take a year, explore college, get a job. If you're waiting to go to the military, wait. When there's a competition, I'll call you up to come and help me out. I was like, but take a step back because you dedicate so much of your time to this thing. And of course you want to give back. But for being so fresh out, I tell them just give yourself a little bit of a break, find other ways to help out. And I mean, help yourself out first.
Right. And I think that's a really good point, right? Giving back is really now going into the real world to flex the skills that you learned from the program, right? And it's about being the leader and being the respectable one and being the dependable one, the hardworking one, the first one in your team to talk about matching shirts and what can you do to build teamwork and camaraderie. It doesn't matter if you work at a McDonald's or, anything like that. Take those transferable skills and weave them into your daily life. Like that is also one of the best ways that you can give back, is by actually putting those skills to work. I would say that's probably at the top of the list of what are some of the easiest things that our recent graduates can do.
Yeah, hands down. Juan, it has been such a blast to be able to have you here with me, to be able to get your story out there, to let these people know who you are, unless they already know who you are, but know you a little bit more in depth. But I can't be more grateful for you taking the time. I know we've tried to get it together a couple times, but the stars finally aligned for us, so we were able to make this thing happen. And Juan, I would love if you'd be able to close it out here for me.
Of course. Just a couple of shout outs. I've been told a time or two that I have a pretty impressive legacy in the world of drill, and I want to shout out those of you who are a part of my story. Silver Valor is where it all started under, the guidance of Senior Master Sergeant Antonio Ruiz. He's like a father to me. And so really shout out to the Clark family, John Jay High School, any of the teams that I've worked with intimately, from the Lady Vikings to now the B-2 Bombers. I want to shout out those individuals. JRTC and drill, if you allow it to, can be transformational. I married a former Silver Valor commander. Her and her husband asked me to marry them, and I did that. And Senior Master Sergeant Ruiz will also be marrying me and my partner come next year. And so I have such love for those people. And like I said, anyone who's a part of my story, any commander who I've helped mentor, any cadet who I've screamed to and screamed at, please know that it was from a place of love. And I wanted to make sure I said that before I wrapped us up. But most people will never understand what it takes. The hours, the sacrifices, bruises, the failures, all for a few minutes on a competition floor. This is a world where perfection isn't expected, it's demanded. A world of intense formations, razor-sharp movements, and thrilling beats that get the crowd tapping their feet. The difference between a winner and a champion: a winner practices until they get it right. A champion practices until they can't get it wrong. And yet, despite the talent, dedication, and passion, drill remains one of the most overlooked competitive activities in the nation. That changes here. This is where the stories are told. This is where the legends are remembered. This is where the future of drill is built. I'm Juan Espinoza. Welcome to the Drill Pad, the voice of the drill community, the home of champions.
Yes. Juan, you are so awesome.
I am. I sure am.
Yes. And I will be the one to layer it all on for everybody else that's listening, that if you know Juan Espinoza is, like I said it with Erica, there is the big three with the Spurs, and then you have Master Sergeant Reese and Juan Espinoza.
Yeah. The dynamic duo.
Dynamic duo, yes. Put that in the San Antonio Hall of Fame. Juan, once again, I greatly appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today. Do you have any last shout outs before we get out of here?
I really want to shout out my family, my kids, my partner, Alex. I have a pretty big network, and a lot of those individuals are connected to drill, and it just always seems like we come back to drill. We're always coming back to drill. The conversation comes back to drill. And I came to a realization, if you love drill enough, it can be a lifelong conversation. And I'm happy to be a part of this. I'm happy to be a part of this podcast as a part of that lifelong conversation. And please know that, you can lean on me and anyone who considers themselves a true driller for help, advice, and support. Because if we're going to say that we are a community, we have to act like it. So I want to remind you, if you need anything from me, please do not hesitate to reach out.
Amen, sister. It couldn't have been said any better. And for anybody else that's out there that's listening, please message me, email, whatever it takes. I want to know your story. Let's get this world out there. Let's make it more mainstream. Message me, questions, comments, concerns, TH3 DrillPad, TH3 DrillPad at gmail.com. Everybody, take care. You're all dismissed.